Well, Kamala Harris has finally managed to do a solo interview. She didn't have Tim Walz holding her hand this time. Now, you'd expect it to be on one of the big networks, who's one of the big-name American news anchors, but she instead did it on a local TV station in Philadelphia. Here she is with 6 ABC anchor Brian Taff, being asked about what specifically she'd do to reduce the cost of living, and then talking about the front lawn.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn.
He said one or two specific things. He put the emphasis even on the specific, but it's almost exactly the same answer she gave to a question on the cost of living during the presidential debate.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
She's rehearsed the lines and she just keeps saying them, which is why if she got a second debate, as she wants, she could be in a bit of trouble because, you know, clearly they've worked out we've just got to keep on message here, avoid the word salads, just keep on message. She's rehearsed the line, she's rehearsed the line, she's rehearsed the line. She can say it rote, but apart from that, she's stuffed. But I mean, how do you go from a question about what are you specifically going to do for the cost of living to I grew up with people who took pride in their front lawn?
I don't know, but she definitely resorted to the word salad because that was just one big ramble of a word salad. What was her point? What was she actually saying? And she eventually got to a couple of things, as you mentioned, about tax breaks for small businesses and oh God, I can't even remember because I was too busy listening to her going on about being a middle-class kid.
Caroline, I think the correct answer is I grew up as a middle-class kid.
And then she also always
what's the square root of 125? I grew up as a middle-class kid.
That was going to be her first answer.
And it was
almost like a bloke who grew up in housing commission.
Yeah.
Hey, come on. As a bloke who grew up in Dandenong, I resent that.
But this is why she did an interview, let's face it, with a local news anchor who would have been loving the fact that he got this big exclusive, but there was no pushback. Okay, but but let's get back to the question. What were your actual policies that are going to make life easier? Why, after 3.5 years in office, is life not already easier? What is actually going to be different going forward? None of that was pressed on her.
But she can't say what she thinks because she doesn't know what she thinks. It is so true.
Or it's price gouging.
You can always spot, but you can always spot it with people where they just clearly have no idea what they're actually saying. They've memorised the lines, they've memorised the words, but they don't know what they mean. You see it with bureaucrats who use ridiculously torturous language to describe either completely banal processes that are really, really easy to make it look like what they're doing is complex and important, or processes that are actually so ridiculously Byzantine and complex and pointless that they actually need the language there to justify their existence. You can hear it with academics all the time. And again, you know, ray gun. But again, people who find themselves using, multisyllabic academic jargonese just to describe breakdancing. And again, there are certain types of academics who will do that, and then you listen to, the real masters, like the best of the best, people at Harvard or Oxford or whatever. They speak really, really simply and really, really clearly. They don't say, if you ask them about, what does Ovid's Metamorphoses mean for 21st century life? They don't start, well, I grew up as a middle-class kid where everybody was proud of their lawns. They just answer the question and say what they think because they know.
Cutting the fat off the meat.
Exactly right.
That's a good way to put it.
But also, I think there's two things that I find fascinating about how people present themselves these days, right? So for obvious reasons, they're trying to say, I'm not better than you, I am you, right? Now, previously, most politicians in the Western world would say that they were from a working class background, and that's why, because there's a greater population. The idea now that this person has clearly spent a lot of time away from working class, the best she can reach down to
is middle class. That's right.
It's amazing.
Is one thing. The second thing is that we have this particular demand on the American presidency that they are solely responsible for all the world's problems, or they can fix all the world's problems. The problem for this administration that they can't get out of is on their watch it got worse. All right? Now, her being able to answer specifically what is the one thing you'll do to change. But the whole point is, the reason she can't answer the question is because she's the co-pilot in the plane that has been going into the wall.
Yes.
She can't turn around. And she can say, look, my plan is to take it away from the wall. Okay, that's great. But currently you are the co-pilot of the thing that is off course, which is why all of these polls basically, Trump in many ways should be winning this election by a much bigger margin because he's trusted on supposedly the issues that people care about. But we all know the personality that means we're right on the edge, like a knife fight of 50-50. So every time she comes out and does that, the people that are kind of thinking about her, like that very small sliver that is not Team Red, Team Blue, they go back here. Then every time he talks about cats, it goes back here.
That's right. And
so it is that tight all the way through.
Yeah, just very quickly, Evelyn.
That's why I think that they're using the emotional appeal. The Democrats, Kamala, however it is, but they're using the emotional appeal because they can't use their statistics, they can't use the last 3.5, 4 years, they can't use their history because, like you said, she's literally the co-pilot of the plane that's crashing. So that's why they're doing these emotional appeals. That's why she's saying, oh, I'm just like you, I'm a middle-class citizen. That's why she's doing the appeal with, the women vote to the black vote. It's all the emotional pulls because she's going to try and pull people in based off that.
And notice as well, she tried to do the relatability thing about small business during the debate by saying, my second mother owned a small business. Well, because you wouldn't have any concern whatsoever for small business unless you knew someone who owned a small business.
But that means that's second, like, that's a governess. That is your, like, that's a nanny.
Yeah, correct.
Like, you've got to live in there.
Serious.